TV, I'm Andrew Chamagid and we're live from Kampala's Rena Conference Center. Now, lockdown efforts to stop the spread of COVID-19 are developing rapidly. Well, now this leaving many people with uncertain future, if I may say it that way. Well, those who have spoken with experts about the coronavirus have a significant impact on their revenue and will be forced to lay off employees. Unfortunately, policymakers are ignoring the economy and focusing on health first. So today we'll be speaking to three people in varied experiences dealing with SMEs. We have Honorable Gerard Karuhanga, the Ntungamo Municipality MP, who is working to make sure that SMEs are taken care of. Then have Mr. John Walugembe, the Executive Director of the Federation of Small and Medium Enterprises, and Dr. Arthur Bainomjisha, the Executive Director of the Advocates Coalition for Development and Environment. Welcome to NTV Morning at NTV.
Good morning to you.
Okay, I read out to you. Good morning to you. It's an honor to have you this early morning. Well, to start with, let me start with the clear thing. Let's start with Mr. Walugembe, if I may start. You lead an organization that represents SME interests, if I may put it that way. How are your members doing and how are you coping up as a team?
So this is a tough time for small businesses. As you know, we've been in a 14-day lockdown, and this has been extended by 21 days. So businesses are not earning money, but they're expected to continue fulfilling their obligations. I'm talking about rent, I'm talking about salaries for staff, I'm talking about different fixed costs. So it's a very tough period for them. No sales, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of obligations, a lot of missed opportunities, a lot of disrupted supply chains. And I can tell you with confidence that many businesses will close after this. And of course, there are those that will survive. And I think the best case scenario is that as many small businesses as possible will survive this crisis.
Oh, well, we're hoping that. Mr. Arthur, I know, Mjisha, the immediate post of COVID-19 period will see a slowdown in the economy. I would like to understand what policy measures are necessary to ensure that SMEs recover from this crisis. We need to understand how best can they recover from the crisis.
Oh, thank you very much. I think across the world, small and medium enterprises are a backbone of every economy, even strong economies like yes. And so governments across the world should support these small and medium enterprises because they employ many people. For example, in Uganda, they employ about 700,000 people. And therefore, it is imperative that the government should support them. For example, I think once we are out of this pandemic, the coronavirus pandemic, it would be important that government helps to roll out some credit, some soft loan to these small and medium enterprises at very, very, very low interest rates to enable some of them that had actually closed down to start, to enable some of those that are struggling actually to emerge and thrive. So it is important that the stabilization fund, either rolled out through Uganda Development Fund, at this time being actually shaped and built by the government to enable these enterprises to continue because they help absorb a lot of the young people, a lot of women who are the backbone of these enterprises. So I think that's important. But at the same time, I think government also needs to be sending out some message, information about how these enterprises can continue to survive. I think we need expert information from expert business people, but also from government institutions that are in charge to be able to give comforting information to support them during this time. Because I know that some of them are laying off their staff. It is not important to lay off their staff. They can find innovative ways of surviving and making small money or a living or supporting their staff during this stressful time.
Understand. Mr. Walugembe, now this goes straight to you. The COVID-19 global disruption supply chain, it does create opportunities for the SMEs through import substitution. So how best should SMEs leverage on these opportunities to manufacture products locally and scale up their game?
Okay, so can I just chip in on the issue of policy measures before
Please,
I look at
yes.
the opportunities? So I think, one, government needs to look at offering tax relief to SMEs. This is very, very important. So it means, for instance, you can waive pay as you earn for about 6 months. You can lower the VAT rate from 18 to 16%, and you can engage in a couple of other innovations to ensure that the tax burden on SMEs is lower. And the second intervention should be about boosting liquidity, and others talked about a fund at a low interest rate. I would actually suggest that it should be at a zero interest rate, because this is a tough time and government's interest is to ensure that as many businesses as possible remain in business. And the third thing should be some kind of job support program, because people have a wage bill to pay, but they are not bringing in money. What happens? So in the UK, for instance, the government is paying 80% of every SME's wage bill. Now, the Ghanaian government may not afford to do that, but they could take up 10 or 15% of compliant SMEs that have been paying their dues. Now, going back to the issue of how can SMEs take advantage of these opportunities?
Yes.
Number one, they should know that because of the disruptions in the international supply chains, a lot of opportunities will appear here for manufacturing products. Therefore, they need to look at investing in technologies to improve their processes, because if you're working manually, you may not be able to meet the demand that will come up. You have looked at the issue of sanitizers, face masks, and so on. You cannot work in a cottage industry with manual and you think you can meet this kind of demand. Number two, we need to, SMEs need to upskill the skills of the employees to be able to meet this demand, and then they should be able to market better, to be able to reach a new clientele during this period. And finally, SMEs need to familiarize themselves with public procurement. You've seen there's an opportunity to supply food, So how do you supply food to the office of the Prime Minister, for instance? You need to familiarize yourself with this process so that you can take advantage of the opportunities that will appear in this crisis.
I understand. Mr. Bainom Gisha, do you want to supplement on that or add more to this, how SMEs can grab the opportunities that come with the COVID-19 lockdown?
Yes, actually, sometimes problems like this one bring opportunities. For example, innovation, as he has talked about. And I think it's also an opportunity for our country to support some of our medium enterprises actually to innovate. But also to change. They don't need to remain stagnant. For example, food. Yesterday, we got information that we don't have enough food in this country, especially beans. So perhaps the agricultural sector where Uganda is well known is another area. And even some of the areas that have been left open, with the shops that are selling seeds, agricultural seeds are open. Let people innovate and go and start agriculture so that people don't remain stagnant. So innovation is going to be one of them. But I think the whole issue of reducing the interest, rather the taxation burden on these enterprises, including actually suspending it for some time. I know that the revenue, there's going to be no revenue correction for the economy, but I think Uganda needs to I know that even when Uganda has big debt, but the G20 is also planning to suspend loan debt repayment for countries like Uganda. So why don't we get that debt relief? Then we should also relieve our people so that they pay zero. I want to support John's proposal. People should not pay any taxes during the time of recovery, so that they can come. They can come up. I also think that the VAT could actually be reduced from 20% to very, very, very negligible levels, so that the small enterprises can come up. But of course, you have to be careful so that people don't think that the taxes are not there, because taxes also are a stimulus for production. Because when people when you abolish taxes, people could also just relax and sleep, and then the economy. So we have to balance how you do that, how you do that really.
Mr. Walugembe, the non-compliance by local SMEs and that is to the national and international minimum product quality and safety goods have been severely raised as a hindrance to the market with regard to the SMEs. What's your thought on this?
Well, I think SMEs need to appreciate that the modern consumer is interested in quality and is interested in standards. And after COVID-19, consumers are not going to take quality, hygiene, and those kinds of measures for granted. Besides, if you get a Q mark from UNBS, for instance, you have increased access to the ESC market. Recently, they signed a protocol where if you have the Q mark from UNBS, you automatically access the various ESC market. So it's a sound business decision to comply and have your products certified. Now, and just to take you through what are the things that they look for during the certification process. They look at good hygiene practices. So after COVID-19, who wants to take a product that is not certified? Okay. They look at proper labeling and packaging. They look at taking your samples to NBS so that they are checked to see what is contained in your product. Are there harmful substances, for instance? How, do you keep quality records to demonstrate that you're compliant? Do you control non-conforming products? So all these things are very important, and SMEs need to appreciate. If we are to take advantage of the opportunities, if we are to become champions of import substitution, we should be able to comply with the standards that exist. Now, I also know that our members have raised a number of complaints about the certification process. One, the length of it, it's too long. Two, it's extremely bureaucratic. A lot of bulk documentation. Sign here, sign there, bring this form, bring that form. I think UNBS can try to reduce the level of documentation during the certification process. And then the other issue is about the cost. So every year, if you're to certify your product, you pay between 250 to 800,000. This is a lot of money for some businesses. So I think UNBS should find a way of democratizing the certification process and relying more on voluntary compliance and working with associations of SMEs and others to ensure that more people are brought into the bracket.
I hear you. Mr. Bainomogish, looking at the liquidity coming soon, shortly after the COVID-19, many SMEs are likely to face a lot of liquidity crunch. In your opinion, as someone who has been at the forefront with SMEs, what should the economic bailout package for them look like?
Yeah, you know, the truth of the matter is that liquidity is going to be a problem, and that is why we are proposing that the government needs to equip first of all, there should be negotiations with the banks, so that the banks, the commercial banks, which are most largely foreign-owned, to roll out schemes that can enable small enterprises to access liquidity, and that is one. But Uganda Government Bank also should be putting together that fund that I talked about, but also through the Youth Livelihood Fund, through the Women's Fund. They should pay the young people, the youth, and the women credit through a system, and they could use the local governments. The local governments come in hand in here. Of course, that must be supplemented with training. There's going to be a need for training people how to handle money. I think government, as a matter of the Ministry of Finance, of course, together with the Bank of Uganda, we don't need to wait for COVID-19 to end. They should be now preparing and putting the fund together, negotiating with the banks themselves also to lower the interest rate, to have special funds to roll. Because once the economy recovers, then the banks also recover. So I think that's going to be very, very pertinent. But of course, at the global level, I think as government, at the international level, I think there is a need to be negotiating with the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and good enough they are here. Accord actually works very closely with the IMF here and the World Bank I think we will be also opening up discussions, because the IMF is supposed to come out and help countries in distress, and I think our country is going to have distress, so that we can access money to equip the commercial banks, to equip the microfinance so that they can access, they can provide money.
I understand. Mr. Bainomgisha, as we're winding up, can you share some of the tips with the SMEs that can make them remain resilient and, you know, steadfast on the ground in this trying moment?
Yes, you know, when the devil hands the lemon, you squeeze juice out of it. I think, first of all, there is a need for innovation. There is a need not to look out of the box, because we should not do business as usual. My brother, actually, John, has pointed out, there is a need to improve their standards. There is a need to look at alternative businesses. There is also a need for them to come together. I think it's also, the whole thing, for them to come together and putting together money, because people have small monies, but if they come together as groups, youth groups, women groups, they can collectively put some flow to work together. But they must prepare for the economy, for the local economy, but the East African economy, which is a big market. So I think they must also try now to bring in educated people.
Okay.
So to bring in new ideas that look beyond their own local environments.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bainomgisha. Mr. Walgemba, as we're winding up, some tips for the SMEs to stay afloat in this trying moment?
Okay, so for SMEs, my recommendation is simple. Do not speculate. Don't engage in excessive investments, except if you see a clear opportunity. Number two, my advice is that cash is king. Whatever cash you have, stick with it. And for the central government, maybe I just want to make two recommendations with regard to the stimulus. They should have both fiscal and monetary policy measures. From my perspective, I see that the central bank is taking very robust measures. It has cut the interest rate. It has instructed banks to restructure loans. The central bank has also lowered the, I think it has
the CBR.
It has capital requirements for banks. So I think, but what is lacking in my opinion are very robust fiscal measures.
Okay. I can hear you because of the technical, but thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. It was quite insightful conversation. Those two are much more grounded with regards to SMEs, and they have shared, if you're one of those in the SME industry, trust me, this came in a handy mode. Now take us for a break and we'll be back shortly.